Welcome to the Biztape, your all things music business and media podcast. I'm your host, Colin McKay, with my lovely host, coast to coast, Joseph Wazaleski, joining me.
Hello.
Huh?
Hello.
How are you,
I'm great. I'm great because I was telling Colin off mic, I finally joined the Apple cult. Thank you. Hold your applause. Thank you.
I think you should specify that it's not to be like anyone should
not an
be
actual
shamed by
cult.
this. No, actually keep that. that part I emphasize. No, the part I'm like, you're saying is that you got a MacBook, not like you just got an iPhone.
No, I just bought all of Apple with my money.
Right.
That I have in the bank where money is. And
Apple's a bank now.
I did see that. I also saw that like the what is it, the Apple credit card or whatever is like horrible interest rate or something.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Where it's gonna put people in severe debt, but people are still gonna get it because it's Apple.
Right. You gotta have the
Apple
flex.
rules the world.
So if you want to join the Apple cult, you can also apply your credit score to it. And you could do that with a MacBook. A MacBook's like $2,000 to $3,000,
Colin,
so you can pay it in payments.
If people want to tell us their credit scores, they can tell us at the Biztape podcast, wherever you get your social media fix, or email us at the Biztape podcast.
That is actually a really funny thing. If you just if we make like
if you just sent the credit score.
Yeah, but
I've never
you have
checked.
to listen. No. You have to listen to the show first. So maybe we'll make a post or something and then be like, you know what to do. And then people should just comment their credit score, but we're not going to say anything on social media about it. And we'll just see people go 683, 405. And people are like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. That'd be good.
No context. Don't tell anybody. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna post on Instagram a little spicy pic, and then you can comment under that.
Spicy pic. That sounds like now it's gonna be like, are they betting money on this spicy pic?
We're gonna label it spicy pic, okay? When we post it, and
I'm gonna laugh if somebody does this. I hope nobody.
You'll
does
know
this.
Which one. You'll know which one it is. But Colin, speaking of cults, I have another story. Sorry, I got stories today.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving. There's this mountain that's like kind of near my place. That's like
this mountain.
Yeah, it like separates one part of the town from the other part. Yeah, just the casual mountain in my backyard.
I'm gonna say yes.
Where the Trader Joe's is and where we had breakfast and stuff.
Yes, I remember the Trader Joe's.
Okay, so there's a little pass in the mountain. Like you could go up the mountain and go around, and like you could go to the Trader Joe's. Okay, so I'm at the Trader Joe's, and then I'm driving back.
Okay.
With my partner, and all of a sudden we look, and there's this like little nook in with the mountain, and I swear to God, Colin, it was literally a cult setup situation. It was it was this little nook, yes, and it was 4 panels with it was like silhouetted figures, and then there was a little chapel thing right in the middle of it with I think there was a pew setup happening as well. There was nobody there, Colin.
Whoa.
It was just sitting out in public. There's no place to park. It's just on this mountain. It was really fucking creepy.
Do you, any chance, just California, since I live in Tennessee, I have to ask these questions. Music video? Do we think it was maybe an art piece? Do we think
here's the thing. If it could be an art piece, maybe, but if it was a music video, they would have tore it down. I feel like if it was a filming situation, because it was flimsy looking. If it was a music video, it wasn't going to be looking too
the
great.
Pews were flimsy is what you're saying. If you sat on them, you feel like you were going to fall over.
Everything was flimsy looking.
That's how it would be.
I think it was usable, but it wasn't I don't know. It was a little suspect, but it was we were coming up around it at the point the sun was going down, and it felt very creepy. Everything was in red. It was red and black, and it was some. I don't want to embellish, but I feel like there was a goat figure as the centerpiece thing. It wasn't like a goat. I guess I don't know. It was something else. It was like a wolf or something.
Well, welcome
But it was
back to
like-
the Paranormal Activity 6, Joe's Los
Yeah.
Angeles. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Well, I don't
good.
even know where to
It's a good
begin
movie.
with
It's a
that,
good movie
and I don't
series.
even know where to end with that. I'm just gonna.
Maybe we should just
choose-
end the podcast. That's it.
That's
We're
it.
done.
I'm gonna choose to move on from that and actually get to music business news. Anyway, Joe, why don't you start off with this? So we're talking about something that happened in my own backyard that destroyed the city. For
Yeah,
many
I did
days.
not get to witness this, but I wish I did. I had a lot of friends go during this night in particular. But Taylor Swift had her Midnight Rain performance. Do you like what I did there, Colin?
Instead of Purple Rain, she had her
Midnight.
Lavender Haze.
Yeah, but she has a song called Midnight Rain that she played at midnight in the rain in Nashville. Okay,
You literally
sorry.
could have just
I'll
made that up.
I'll-
I
I'll-
literally
I'll
would have
keep
believed
going.
you.
No, it's true. It's so Taylor
I mean-
Swift played Nashville's very own Nissan Stadium this past week during an insane thunderstorm that caused fans and artists alike to take shelter until about 10 p.m., which is 4 hours after the show was supposed to kick off, with Phoebe Bridgers and Gracie Abrams scheduled to open the show. But due to the short amount of time, the production made the decision to cut their sets entirely, with Taylor Swift just taking the stage right about like 10 p.m. So there was like so much rain. Colin, you probably had friends there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was like everybody was like packed underneath the Nissan like ottoman.
I saw more about this
situation.
show than the shows that it didn't rain.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this was the most like this was also the last night of the 3-night run, so it was like perfect for her and for like everything to get picked up. But then what's crazy is like seeing all the videos, everybody's just like sitting in these like concrete like little areas, and it looks like, you know, like when you're in school and you're doing a tornado warning.
It didn't
everybody's-
help. And then like the way that like just the outfits of Taylor Swift are very like, you know, very like glitz
Everybody
and
was
glam.
glammed out.
Yeah.
Everybody was like wearing pink, and it was like crazy. But then like you
Middle
cut
school
to, like,
dance.
yeah, I mean it very much is middle school dance, but like a lot of sequence, you know.
Yeah,
but then
right.
like cut to the actual performance. The rain was still happening, like during the whole thing. So those of you wondering about, I guess like let's go back to like how long it lasted, because the whole show lasted until 1:35 a.m. So 10 p.m. to 1:35 a.m.
And this was
Taylor
Sunday,
did-
right? So this was really
this
Monday
was
morning.
Sunday night. She did the whole entire performance, which is it's pretty insane to think about. And those of you wondering about curfew, because we talked about this with our last couple of episodes with like Coachella and kind of the issues that came with, you know, Frank Ocean's set and everything. Nissan Stadium is city owned and is not subject to restrictions that other venues face. So the local government essentially kept the lights on because they were terrified to let loose 70,000 angry Swifties into the wild, as Billboard puts it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Colin, I want you to imagine this. You're on Broadway.
Already terrible.
It's
Keep
rain.
going.
It's yeah, I know. It's not a great night. Okay, you're like 3 drinks in.
Someone's gonna get mad at me for that.
Someone
but-
pulled you out there. You're like, this is horrible. You look down the street. It's also raining, by the way. It's like raining. It's not fun. You look down the street and you see an armada of Sequence, Taylor Swift, Swifties heading down Broadway, coming your way. What is your plan of escape in that moment? And as you know, like with any concert let out, all of downtown's fucked. Like trying to get out of that sphere is almost next to impossible because like it gets
was
so
so
jam-packed.
bad. Just even without the rain and stuff like that, I can attest to that. There was I saw there was a graphic around which, you know, I can't verify the validity of, but Taylor Swift was playing 3 nights. Janet Jackson was also playing Bridgestone, which was the same thing that happened in Atlanta, which was the tour stop before there. And also there was a like some sort of like brewing convention, like an IPA brewers convention, Music City Center that weekend. And the really icing on the cake is I believe MTSU, Lipscomb, and Belmont, 3 very major colleges around Nashville, all were having graduation at the same time. So it was nightmarish. So then we add this situation. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I mean, I could start running up Demumbrian, but I'm going to lose steam. That's just a giant hill. So is Broadway.
Yeah, are you just going to like run to East at that point, just barrel through them?
But that's the problem is I got to go through them. It's like if I got to go through the pedestrian bridge, then I'm just literally like, yeah, like then I'm in like a Left 4 Dead scenario where literally
it's gonna look like I imagine it's like Lord of the Rings where you're like looking out and you just see all the pink, all everything is just like coming your way, and it's just.
And everybody in that scenario, like everybody's just been rained on, and is mad. And so
they're definitely getting drinks. That every single one of them are going to go and get drinks.
So you're saying like if they closed it maybe at like 10 o'clock, they were like, guys, she's not going to play. But most of them would be canceled at that point. Like most of the bars would start kind of closing. But at the same time, I don't know. You can't go uptown because if you start going uptown, like again, you're running up a hill. I'm assuming I'm on foot, by the way. Being in a car sounds worse in this scenario. Then if you try to go uptown and then maybe across the other bridge near the courthouse, they're also going to be there because that's how you get out of Nissan. It's just, I'm screwed. Like
there's no escape.
I think
it's like a zombie apocalypse.
I think literally what I'd have to do is run up Demumbrian, go to that giant roundabout and just start running towards like west and just like find a spot to like hunker down for like an hour or two and then leave. Like literally.
You could swim in the river if you were truly.
I'm not touching that water. I've seen from 2nd Avenue what people have done in that water, and I'm not touching that water.
It glows green sometimes.
I'm not looking at that weird roller coaster monument across the street. I'm not looking at any of it. I refuse to.
I had an event one time that was like at the little cafe that's like right next to that thing.
Yeah,
and
the wedding venue.
I just remember
place?
staring. Yeah, I just remember staring at that thing, just trying to figure out what the fuck is the reason for it.
I joke that it's like a memorial to people who, had an issue on a roller coaster and sadly passed away. That's not what it is. It's the weirdest memorial.
No, look up the Dollywood Memorial.
Literally. Like, I have no idea what that memorial's for. It's going to be really sad if it's something bad. I'm going to figure out what it is. But anyway.
Before we get canceled.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
so I apologize. I'm sorry if that is whatever that's for. I'm hoping that it's like for the spirit of America.
Colin is sitting down. He's getting ready for his YouTube apology. Sorry. Anyway, Swift, who is a showwoman to the core, brought out amazing acts during the set, such as Phoebe, who sung Red Taylor's version and Nothing New, as well as bringing out collaborator Aaron Dessner from The National, who played along with Taylor and was actually with her when the rain started falling down. And they kind of just looked at each other and they said, well, I guess we're doing this thing. And they continued the show, which is the most metal Taylor Swift show on the planet.
Yeah. Trooper.
And what's unfortunate is that Phoebe intro didn't happen this night. Which, Colin, have you seen clips of that at all? Her walkout song is Korn. And it's like metal. Like there's like flames and shit happening on the graphics. It's so sick. But what a way to close out her 3-night run in Nashville. But Colin, well, first off, a serious question here. What do you think about the people who had to leave, especially like with families, little kids? Do you think that they should get their money back in this situation? Do you think it's fair that those people who had to leave for a legitimate reason still have to pay these insane Live Nation fees, essentially?
So I do think that this is where it gets hard, and this is where terms of service come into play, right? Where, you had signed this agreement that no one has ever read in their lives with Live Nation to buy this ticket. I believe it's Live Nation. Yeah. And you signed this agreement with the promoter. If I'm wrong, maybe it's AG. I don't know. But the point is that you signed this agreement. No one's ever read it. And one of those is definitely a weather clause of some sort. Being like, if you've ever read like an insurance document, the will of God or something like that, there's going to be a statement about that. You know what I mean? Like if something crazy happens, then like, sorry, you know what I mean? It just happens. It gets canceled. And at the end of the day, it didn't get canceled. It just got postponed, which is a very different scenario because then,
it did get postponed very dramatically, like hours, which I feel like in most cases might not happen. But
Taylor
Taylor
said such high demand that like there is no reschedule. Like,
and like Billboard points out, it might be a public safety issue, I guess, if you're like letting all these people out into the rain.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, then you're going into shelter in place and all that kind of stuff, especially with thunderstorms and, very bad torrential rain, which is what people have told me they experience. And, in town, literally less than a couple miles from the place. Yeah, it was pretty bad. You know what I mean? Sunday. It wasn't like scary bad where I was, but if you have 70,000 people, heavy rain and thunderstorms, that just ensues not only like, you get risk of falling, you have risk of, electrical hazards from lightning, but you just also get panic between crowds. Mm-hmm. And then, especially with bad weather, people get anxious and all that kind of stuff. So like, I completely agree with, hey, let's keep these people in place. Everybody understands like, we're not doing this on purpose. This is a safety thing. It's the weather. I mean, it sucks, but it's not like we're just like, hey, there's nothing visibly going on and we're just going to stop the show. It's like, no, it's raining cats and dogs out here and there's thunder, which is the main thing. I mean, thunder and lightning, which is why they're worried more about it, which is why they kept going even in the little bits of rain that would occur during the show, because you can do it in the rain. Anyway, do I think about refunds here? I would be interested in an argument for it. I think someone definitely could. And if I was like Live Nation at the end of the day, if you were like really on it, like, hey guys, we were supposed to get out of here at like 11 o'clock max. And so I had to leave like an hour into Taylor's show or something. Can I get a partial refund? I think you should be able to go, yeah, okay, that sucks. And
yeah,
as a customer service thing, I feel like that's not bad. But at the same time, they delivered, right?
They did.
Most people are buying these tickets. No shade to Phoebe or any
Gracie.
of the other, Gracie. Any of the other openers, if this happens too. But like, most people are buying these tickets to see Taylor Swift, 100%. And then as an added bonus, these are the openers that maybe you would also like. That's how a lot of people see this, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, Taylor did come on. She did her full set. She continued to do it. She was there. There was an opportunity the day of the ticket. I could totally be like, yeah, I'm satisfied. And I think from a fan perspective, there's a lot of fans, like logistically, if I look from their perspective, just be like, oh, the weather sucked. But like, literally no one can control that, right? So, and especially with like rain and, random sporadic pieces of weather, literally there's no indication,
Come on, Colin. You don't think Live Nation heads
weather machine
go into their sacrificial room and pray to the Live Nation God?
You mean in the set like that you guys saw in California? Yeah, that's where they go.
That's the Live Nation office, actually.
Yeah, right. No, but like seriously though, like no one can predict this. So I feel like from Live Nation's perspective, they could totally argue, be like, no, she did play. It was postponed. I mean, it's an extreme postponement. I think that is as far as they could have postponed. You know what I mean? Like 4 hours. That's cutting it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's it.
It's pretty incredible that she went through the whole set as well. Like,
and that's
especially
the other
with
thing.
dancers and like
it's
the
a
whole
triumph
thing.
for her, I think, at the end of the day, and especially from like a tech perspective, that's a very hard thing to do. is deal with the rain and the weather and the sporadic nature of it, especially with Taylor, who has choreography and, you know, all this. It's not like she's not a rock band who just stands there. You know what I mean? Like, she's doing dance moves. She's running up and down the runway. She's doing costume changes.
She's diving into the stage.
She's literally like, and so I think, like, at the end of the day, that's a testament to her skill and her ability as a performer and her dedication to her fans that she kept on going anyway. I personally think that because of that and that how that apparent is, like how apparent that is to fans, that the amount of people that probably want a refund is very little. And from a Live Nation perspective, I bet you it's so little that I would just be like, just give it to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's probably an inconsequential amount of people that want this kind of refund. And it's not like there's some growing mass that I've heard of that are like, hey guys, we should all try to get some partial refund from Ticketmaster. And like, there's some, I'm thinking from Ticketmaster's angle, like be like, oh man, I got to think in my head, if we like start approving refunds, then maybe other people will come through. I don't think so. I think a lot of people left that show. And honestly, a lot of people that I saw were kind of like, wow, what a very special experience I had. You know what I mean? Like with Taylor when it rained and stuff. Like, it was almost like that sucked, but I get to be part of something maybe historic, you know, to them. Yeah. So like, it's almost like in a weird way, like that sucked, but that was kind of a cool moment in my life. So I think it's I think the amount of people that would want it, if I was Ticketmaster, I'd be, yeah, take it. I don't care. Whatever. Here you go. You know what I mean? Maybe like less than 1,000 people, I bet, would ask for refunds for this. But who knows? Do you think so, Colin, from your perspective in live entertainment, because you've worked so many events and work with event professionals on the day-to-day, what are some like what's kind of your perspective of like what's the run through of like a performance that's dealing with this? I guess like what's kind of the breakdown of different things that happen? Just so like our audience kind of has an understanding. Yeah, I mean, you got to listen at the end of the day to all of these big events have a very inline safety plan and a very brick and mortar. If this thing happens, we are doing this, and they will follow that. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of times they'll, you know, the production manager will, you know, be with the venue, and usually this large event, there's a safety coordinator, all that kind of stuff, and they will, you know, bring up, hey guys, I'm sure hours before, we think it's going to rain right in the middle of the set. We're going to play it by ear, but we got to be prepared. Tell all your people at your respective places, go tell audio, go tell video, go tell lighting, like, you know, everybody who's involved, go tell, you know, people who are doing makeup and costumes that it's probably going to rain, and we're going to go through our, you know, our kind of step-by-step process, which, you know, if it's going to rain, then you got to prepare on the tech side from like protecting the equipment at the end of the day. I mean, you got speakers in the air, you know, you got equipment, electronics on the ground, you got lighting in the air, all that kind of stuff. Especially if there's wind, that's a possibility. You have to prepare for, I think we might need to take down this PA. I think we might need to take down this trussing. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to survive super torrential winds. It'll survive some, but like not super high bad storm. I mean, I think everyone here has probably seen a video of a stage collapsing, and that's where a lot of it comes from. It's just like high tipping and wind risk. So yeah, they all start in their respective departments taking their own precautions. I mean, being an audio person I am, I would go, all right, anything that we can, you know, if we got tarps with literally a weather caddy, like a lot of tours will tour with a weather caddy, like that literally is for this idea that like, hey, it's going to rain for like 2 hours and then we're going to do the show. Okay, go cover all this random stuff that's exposed with tarps. You know what I mean? And so they'll start preparing for that. Then, you know, obviously the production manager's got to go tell the acts and their respective managers being like, hey, Phoebe, you know, we don't know. It looks like it's going to rain really heavy, but you're going to get delayed. They're going to get delayed, and then probably have real talks with either Phoebe or the manager as time goes on going, hey, you know, they've decided to cut your set, all that kind of stuff, between everybody else, you know, and the showrunner and the promoter and everybody. So they take it one step at a time at the end of the day, but a lot of these are locked in, hey, everybody do your respective things at once. They prepare for this situation. They have literally binders usually that they keep around that say, this is what you do in this scenario. And it goes from literally something as simple as this, it's raining, there's lightning, all the way to there's an active shooter, there's a fire, there's a bomb. You know what I mean? Like everything in between there. And when you have literally close to 70,000 people in Nissan Stadium all running around, you cannot mess around with that kind of stuff. So it's so funny you said that, because my mom actually was like, how do they do it in the rain? Does it suck for the equipment? I'm like, oh yeah, baby, it sucks. It's so bad. Things get wet. Thankfully, most gear, especially at a level that Taylor is, which is, in my opinion right now, the biggest tour in America and probably the biggest tour in the world in terms of like notoriety right now. There is such a level of high performance gear that a lot of this gear is weatherized. A lot of this gear is prepared to work in weird conditions, be agile with temperature and humidity and all that kind of stuff. So the main thing for the techs is just trying to keep everything as, operational as possible, which is why you keep with like spares and all this kind of stuff. The idea of like, oh, if Taylor has this pack, like, a wireless pack that she listens to her in-ears, the thing gets dredged with water or something, you know what I mean? Like, and some water goes into place. And most of the time the packs are very well designed to, have water come off of it and stuff and all that kind of stuff. But let's just say something happened. This one's been on tour for a while and water got into it and the pack just like jittered out and it doesn't work anymore. They have to be ready to be like, okay, you have a second pack. You know what I mean? And it might be literally on her body. She might have 2 packs. You know what I mean? And she might just switch over the jack in the back of her, like, shirt, go, you know what I mean, really quick into the other jack and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. So that's the kind of forethought that you have to have. And especially with weather, then you're going to risk more failure when it comes to literally everything on the stage, not as well as safety at the end of the day. People fall on stages that are bone dry. So if you got water, like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like I said, you got people doing choreography, you got people dancing, you got all this stuff, and all of that has to be thought from the beginning of the planning process, right? Like you got to think like, oh, well, all this cable can't be on the stage. It can't be in the middle of the stage. They got to dance here. You know what I mean? And we don't want anybody to trip over. And that's in dry weather. Imagine if it's all wet now. So yeah, at the end of the day, like a lot of this is thought through, but with just smart planning from the beginning. But then afterwards, like, if it's something like Taylor or the venue and everything, it reminds me a lot of, there's a lot of other notable concerts, like Guns N' Roses had one in Los Angeles, I believe in the late 80s. It's very notable because it caused a giant riot because they canceled last minute. It literally, people were rioting in the streets, like flipping cars over, doing this stuff because they're so upset that this didn't happen. I can see
Swifties doing that.
Right. You know what I mean?
Swifties on par with Guns N' Roses.
I would say there's different crowds, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you just don't know.
I'm truly serious. I can see Swifties taking over the world, honestly.
Well, yeah,
if they wanted to.
I think so too. I just think the thing is that, with 70,000 people, if you think they can't do something, I guarantee you they can. And at the end of the day, it's just all this weather stuff causes so much more of a risk for the crew and also a risk for Taylor and the team and the equipment. So for them doing that, that really shows like, hey, we are choosing as a community that is on this tour, to do our best to power through, because we want to make sure these 70,000 fans are, one, obviously getting their money's worth. 2, they've been waiting in the rain forever. And 3, we don't want anything crazy to potentially happen. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want, a mob mentality to just randomly break out. I'm not going to say that, like, oh, of course, I would think Swifties would do this. I'm just saying when you have 70,000 people that all have, a upset, anxious emotion, you do not know what will happen. You know what I mean? And so you have to prepare for the worst. So I think this was the move at the end of the day, was to keep going through it. And I'm glad the city government just, Nashville didn't do anything to like be like, oh, let's just get rid of it. It's like 12 o'clock. It's too late.
Yeah.
It's a Monday. Like, I'm really glad that it was like, okay, let's keep going. You know what I mean? And even though it was 1:35 a.m., I think a lot of people thankfully did have a really good time. And I've heard nobody say like, oh, well, that sucked. There was like, it rained or whatever, and there was a bunch of technical No, they powered through it. They were ready. You know what I mean? That crew and Taylor were. So I think they created, out of a bad experience, a very unique experience for people that people will go, I was there. You know what I mean? In 2023.
I think people are going to be really stoked about it.
So,
all in all, pretty great concert experience, honestly.
Yeah, and that's hard to take.
That show.
That's really hard to take from a very, very obtuse negative experience. Like, literally, that should just be, oh, this is gonna suck, to make it into an event. It almost reminds me. It reminds me in the same way, but even less so, because again, she's playing for 4 hours. It's raining. It's not raining. It's raining. It's not raining. But like when Prince played, the Super Bowl while it was raining. Right? Yeah. Like that's so sick. But she did it for like 4 hours. So good on her and her team for powering through that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Colin, what is up next?
All right, let's talk about this. People have asked me to talk about this. I was waiting for it to conclude before we really talked about it. We're talking about Ed Sheeran and this copyright case he's been involved with.
Which concluded pretty fast. I thought it was going to take a lot more time,
right?
Honestly.
So this was a very notable case for a couple reasons. It had the potential to be as huge of a case that we've talked about it multiple times on the show, but you can look into it yourself, is the Blurred Lines versus Marvin Gaye case, where it has huge ramifications of what is considered precedent for copyright, specifically with songs. And the two parties involved in this case that we're going to talk about right now are sadly very not unfamiliar with the legal system. And so the first one is Ed Sheeran. So Ed Sheeran obviously has been, and I'll get into it later, been out of the court system literally since the 2010s with various consistent copyright battles over and over and over. And he's just been getting it literally since his career really started to plateau, like with copyright claims and all this kind of stuff. The song that this time Ed is getting accosted with was Thinking Out Loud, which, a lot of people know because it was a huge mega hit song. And it was at the forefront of everything for a very good amount of time, and then it kind of fell out. But it's one of Ed's signature songs that he takes a lot of pride in. And so this lawsuit that was brought against him specifically was by the family of Ed Townsend, which... Are we noticing a trend here? I hear a lot of the family of, and not a lot of the artists doing this a lot of the time. But Ed Townsend was the co-writer with Marvin Gaye. And Marvin Gaye and him wrote the signature hit Let's Get It On, which they allege that Thinking Out Loud took the rhythm, chord progression, and other elements from, without the permission, from the 1973 song by Marvin Gaye. So, again, all three of those things, rhythm, copyright, or rhythm, chord progression, and other elements by themselves are not copyrightable, but together are the core basis of a song, right? So what they're trying to say is like, hey, you have copied, or this is derivative, is what the word would be, from our song, and together your elements add up to something that is applicable and also very easy to notice that this is a copy or derivative of our song, right? So the guy he was the attorney for the plaintiffs, and so that would be Ed Townsend and them, is a guy named Ben Crump. And he alleged that Sheeran, quote, recognized the magic of Let's Get It On and infringed on its copyright for the tune, and that the case is about giving credit where credit is due. Sure.
Damn right.
Sure it is. So Ed Sheeran, again, I'll tell you what the songs are. It's Let's Get It On and Thinking Out Loud. If you want to pause this right now, I found a YouTube video of them like kind of played like one section of one and one section of the other. And you're going to see, not spoilers, how ridiculous this case is. Anyway, Ed Sheeran has been fighting this fight literally forever, and he's freaking done with courts. Like, he is so done with it. Like, he even went on to state that, like, if this case went on and he lost, he said, quote, "If that happens, I'm done. I'm stopping." Which he's talking about playing music and writing songs.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Right. He goes, "I find it really insulting to work my whole life as a singer-songwriter and diminish it," which I don't blame him, because if you listen to those two songs back to back, what the hell is the connection other than the key is the same?
There's zero connection at all. And like, that's the thing that, like, what's funny is like the comments. Sometimes the YouTube comments really hit, but I love like where everyone's just like, especially the Marvin Gaye estate, they're known to sue a bunch of people. And it's funny because it's like, yeah, that chord progression was the same. We owned that chord progression because our father did it one time. And now he owns that chord progression. No, that's not how songwriting works. It's not how the process of it works. And they're trying to monopolize songwriting in a horrible way. And what's honestly truly dumbfounded about this whole situation is, like, I don't think Marvin Gaye would have wanted this at all.
Or
Not
either
to
Ed
speak for him
Townsend
or anything. Yeah, I just don't think their families were in touch enough of like how the industry actually works for them to like, they don't have any stake in the industry besides they view it as like, oh, this is our piggy bank. We can just like keep gushing some coins out of this thing, And it's truly sad. It's very sad, especially because his estate, the Marvin Gaye estate, is so wealthy already.
Right.
Like, do you need more money from people at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll drop off my soapbox.
No, I mean, I think you're hitting it. I think you're hitting it right on the nail. I mean, it's kind of insane. Like, if I encourage you to listen to both songs and come back to me and tell me, like, and go, this song, I would immediately go, oh. And I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. I understand from like a basic earworm thing going, there's a similarity there, but there's so many songs that are similar that it is insane that this would be enough to go, hey, this is effectively the same song, right? And so let me tell you a little bit about the court case. Ed was not messing around. He literally was like multiple times taking the stand. He would take the stand and he would literally bring his guitar out and sing to the court, just showing them the differences, like going like, this is different. This is that, like, literally, he is at the lowest level showing the differences between these songs. And here,
at least they got a free Ed Sheeran concert.
Apparently, right? And he was literally not having it, especially with this musicologist. He was not having it. So the plaintiffs, the Townsend family, brought in this guy named Alexander Stewart, and he's a musicologist, which usually, in my experience, only comes up when there's a copyright case. I don't hear a lot about musicologists unless we got to prove that somebody violated copyright. But basically, Alexander Stewart was brought by the Townsend family to show the similarities between the song, which I do agree there are similarities, but not enough to be copyrightably like the same or derivative, right? Like you can hear there's like a downward inflection in like some of the lines or whatever. You can hear like the keys the same or whatever, but literally people are laughing at this guy on the stand. He tried to play this like AI version of both songs to show that they were the same, and literally the court started laughing. He did. He literally did.
Are you serious?
Yes. Ed apparently it was written that Ed was like hiding a smile because he thought it was so bad. Like it looked like he's trying not to laugh because obviously he's in court and this is very serious.
Yeah.
They also showed, which this was hilarious to me. They showed live footage where Sheeran played both songs like back to back in a concert. So like he's playing Thinking Out Loud, to do a little transition, and then they play Let's Get It On, right? And what's crazy about that is that like the plaintiffs, the Townsend family was so like, we got him with this. They said quite simply, like, I can't believe it. The plaintiff
it was smoking gun.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they said.
Yeah, he said it was the smoking gun, and then they said it was tantamount to a confession. Mm-hmm. And Ed Sheeran rebutted with, it's quite simple to weave songs in and out of each other, especially when they're in the same key. And then my favorite was, after the musicologist goes, all the smoking gun stuff, Ed Sheeran takes the stand and basically tells the plaintiff's attorney is cross-examining him, asking him questions. And they asked about the musicologist, and he goes, if I can be honest, I think what he's doing here is criminal. Which is wild.
Wait, who said that? Ed said
Sheeran.
That?
He's talking about the musicologist.
Man.
He said, if I can be honest, I think what he's doing here is criminal. Talking about the musicologist.
Whoa.
And I'll leave you with this. Townsend's daughter, who's the lead plaintiff, whose name is Catherine Townsend Griffin, took the witness stand and also said, she goes, well, she didn't say the well, but I like to imagine she did. She goes, well, Ed Sheeran is a great artist with a great future. Like, he's not a giant artist already. Like, he's like, playing little.
Yeah, he's okay. He'll have a moment, but
he'll get there. Like he's not giant. It's like
pat
me
on the back.
It's literally like me being like, Taylor Swift, a great artist with a great future. You know what I mean? It's like, all right.
Well, you know what? Maybe this guy should do the music thing. Something tells me.
It's got that tone. It's like those documentaries where, like, it'd be like Led Zeppelin talking about, like, Robert Plant talking about, like, Greta Van Fleet. It'd be like, those kids got a great future. You know what I mean? Like, okay, whatever. But she said, quote, I have to protect my father's legacy. So they lost, plain and simple. Ed Sheeran did win the case and was delighted for many reasons because, like I told you, he's literally been in court cases since the 2010s. Ever since he got really big around 2013, 2014. It is amazing how many court cases he's been in. One of the most notable ones was also, I was just going to mention really quickly, was, and this is the one we talked about a bit, is he was involved in a copyright suit for The Shape of You, and these like two grime artists went after him, right? And said, hey, you stole our song. Again, in my opinion, just like this one, two very different songs that I would be like, they're in the same key and they have maybe like a downward inflection. You know what I mean? But I would never confuse these two songs together. I don't think like it uses a part of it or anything like that. But the point that I'm trying to say is that I wonder with this, because Ed Sheeran recently, and this is a recent development, won, like, from my understanding, more compensation from the Grimes artists. And now, like, those grime rappers have to pay Ed Sheeran $1.1 million in legal fees.
Whoa. That's insane.
Like, and this was, I should mention, this is in the UK court, so it's a little bit different. But, like, yeah, they're ordering that they pay $1.1 million in legal fees because, to be honest, if I'm Ed Sheeran and I'm getting all these cases, because, guys, look at the freaking numbers of Ed Sheeran. I've talked about how he was literally one of the biggest touring artists of last year. And he doesn't get mentioned. He's still a huge artist, so he's a big target, right? And and he makes pop music, so it's even a bigger target, right? So like, he basically is just saying, can I have my lawyer fees? It cost me $1 million in lawyer fees to defend all this shit and all the travel to go to where I needed to go, all this kind of stuff, right? Like, it's not outrageous. Like, and I'm wondering if he's going to get or try to get something similar to that in this case, to go, you knew this case was not worth anyone's time. And
it was so much not worth anyone's time. It took a week.
It literally took a week.
Because the judge was like, and the jury were like, this is dumb.
And I wonder if, like, we could see somebody come from Ed Sheeran's camp and go, you owe us legal fees. Give us legal fees because you wasted our time, and something close to that. And, not to be like he has precedent, but he kind of has precedent. You know what I mean? To be like, these other people sued me and I would like, money for that too. So I would not be surprised if he comes after this estate. And to be honest, Joe, I kind of wanted to open up to that. We've seen a lot in the last 20 years, when me and you were coming up through the industry, a lot of these fruitless lawsuits. Personally, I think partially due to the ease of access of the internet, and everything when it comes to music and being able to compare music so openly. There's even videos I can find on YouTube 4 years ago that are like just making a fun hypothetical argument. Should Thinking Out Loud close to Let's Get It On? Like literally there's videos from 4 years ago. So the internet's adding to this, and then there's families that have money that, are trying to reap the rewards of these copyrights they inherit from the estate. Do we think we should have some more penalties towards these families, like that are just going after some of these, in my opinion, frivolous lawsuits?
To be honest, I'm back and forth on it because like on one level I'm like, yes, I do think so, because like there is a level of, this is different than like someone actually suing that's like a lower level artist. I feel like because these people have done it so many times in the past, and they've literally made careers off of winning their legal battles from their father's estate, essentially. And what's I feel like is kind of a tricky situation is where it could actually potentially, if those restrictions were put into place, it could really restrict someone whose situation was like, this is blatant copyright infringement, and they had like a bad judge and a bad jury,
That's true.
And so like there is a level of that I'm like, maybe not. However, maybe there's like a sliding scale of it, of like, these people are really trying to, there's a level of like, what I like about it is if you lose and you have to pay all this money to the person that you were trying to sue at the beginning, it does set a precedent to other people thinking about suing that, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe right. I should double check my sources here, or put more thought into it. And maybe it would get rid of a lot of these frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so.
They're pervasive in the music industry.
And they always have been to an extent, but I really think like we do need some of the precedent of being like, hey, you brought something. Obviously, this is very interpretive, but like the idea of being like, hey, I should be able to sue you for this stuff because I want my legal fees. You know what I mean? Because you sued me. And like on top of that, I think for some people, you could even argue damages to be like, people thought I just copied other people's songs because of you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so they, maybe I lost a record deal. Maybe I lost a publishing deal because they thought, oh no, you might write a song that will cause a giant lawsuit. You know what I mean? So I wonder from that aspect if we could see some formal kind of maybe even legislation if we want to go that far, but definitely precedent of going, hey, if you're going to give us these frivolous lawsuits, then I'm coming after you back. You know what I mean? Especially for music stuff. And I don't really know. I definitely think, and I want your opinion about this, Joe. I think this is definitely a unique era of these battles because of the tools and the ease of access that we have with music. I mean, to really be honest, like the ability and fastness of like getting a lawyer representation and stuff has been sped up dramatically. The amount of people that know about this copyright issues and the power of owning these copyrights has gone up dramatically. And then just the ease of access of music. I mean, if you go back, like literally, if you go back to 40s and like 30s and 50s records, all the time you go, this is the same song. This is the exact same song. Like it is ungodly the same song. But I wonder if like, people were making YouTube videos. That was kind of
part of the culture of it too, right? Of making music.
I wonder if like, I think there's a balance. I definitely think there's a balance. And I think as a legal system, we are still figuring out what the balance is in terms of copyrights. But I think because of the ease of access of everything with the internet and streaming specifically, I think we're figuring out, oh God, we got to figure out this issue fast. You know what I mean? Because again, Ed's gone through at least 3 or 4 of these lawsuits, and we've covered at least, I believe, 2 of them on the show. And it's really draining. And thankfully, Ed is, you know, in a position to have more resources to defend himself. You know what I mean? But it is also like, I don't think it's necessarily a thing that we need to be like, oh, this is just part of being a musician that's big. You're just going to get sued by 1,000 people because your song, you know what I mean? Again, he is getting sued only because his song vaguely has a hint of sounding similar, and he's having close to $1 million in legal fees. And I wonder, like I'm saying, if there needs to be legislation around that going like, hey, if you guys are doing all these, and I know there's slap laws and all that kind of stuff with like for frivolous lawsuits, but maybe specifically towards music stuff and precedent towards that going, hey, you can't just keep doing it. And we could go, I mean, I could go on and on about this, is like also the families, right? We're talking about families. I really don't think, like you're saying, a lot of songwriters understand and get the culture of, you take the nuances from one person and a nuance from another in your own, and you mix them all together, and that's your music, right? And so I think for a lot of people, especially families who are maybe not as like high profile, and you know, they could be musicians, but what I mean by like who have a high level of nuance with music, not saying that I do by any means, I want to throw that in there, but people who really understand the craft can go, no, I can hear and see the difference in that. But maybe if you're Joe Schmo out there, you'd be like, this is the same song. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. And then they go, we should go sue them. And then you go talk to some lawyer. And then like, they're like, Ed Sheeran's worth how much amount of money? Let's just sue him anyway. Maybe we'll win. Like, maybe he'll just be like, here's $100,000, go away. You know what I mean? So I honestly think it is part of also the length of a copyright, you know? The life of an author, what is it, plus 120 years, I think is what it is, which is insane. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and with the plethora of information out there and the ability to compare these songs that are able, I think we're just, like I said, I think we're just going to see more and more. So I don't think we're necessarily, I don't want to go from the front end. I don't want to go from the front end and say, hey, you need to have this burden of proof to have a lawsuit about copyright, because I agree with you. I think there are people that are going to get lost in transit. I think it's more of, you better have it. You better really believe in this, like 100%. Because if you don't, you're paying Ed Sheeran's legal fees. You know what I mean? And someone smarter than I is going to have to come up with a way legally, I think, to figure out like how the precedent for that would be. But I don't know. It's all about, you know, at the end of the day, music is very cyclical. I mean, there's new things that develop with technology and stuff, but there's sounds that just repeat over and over and over. Not to be like, we've discovered everything with music, but like we kind of have discovered a lot of things with music. And there's things that fall in and out of fashion. You can see that with any media, literally, like fashion is another example, you know, one year's style is another year's faux pas, that kind of stuff. And the same thing with music, where they're just going to copy stuff. And I think it's really important to note, like in this period, let me take you back to deep, what is it? What would that be? God, I feel so old. Almost 10 years ago, when Thinking Out Loud and that whole Ed Sheeran kind of wave really started. Ed Sheeran was an oddity at the time, because we had gone through, I mean, I remember growing up through this, everything became super electronic heavy in the late 2010s. You know what I mean? Like, or the early 2010s. We had like the real rise of trap music. We had EDM really become EDM. You know what I mean? We had, I mean, for God's sakes, Taylor Swift was releasing albums that sound like EDM music now. You know what I mean? And Ed came out and people were like, oh my God, this is a breath of fresh air on popular radio. It's just a, you know, guy with a guitar and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's what rose him to fame, is that he had that kind of stuff that was cyclical. Like it wasn't in the fold anymore, right? It wasn't a part of popular music right then. And do I think like part of it could be like, yeah, it was influenced by older music. Absolutely. There's actually a quote in here that says his producers called this song his Van Morrison song. Right? Like,
yeah.
And so like, I think there is merit to going, oh yeah, 100% they're going to be influenced by it. But you don't own a chord progression. You don't own everything that is Ed Sheeran in that song. He didn't cover your song. He made a completely new song that happens to be in the same key. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying is like, I think innately music is very cyclical, and the more it's not a problem with music. I will say that. And I personally believe that. And we did a poll, which Joe, I'd love to know your information about this, but I'm personally, I don't believe so, because in general, does popular music copy too much from past music? And 64% of you said no, and 36% of you said yes, which I am more in the camp of no. You know, there is a couple things that drive new sound. New technology is one. You know, we're seeing that with AI and all that kind of stuff. We're seeing that with just stylistic tastes that come up, but also there is a cyclical nature to music where it just comes back through the fold. And I don't think artists should be punished for that, because how do you learn a craft without watching other craftsmen? Without trying to be another Picasso.
Well, and everybody's influenced at the end of the day. Everybody's been influenced by another artist. There's literally, I mean, there's millennia of artists that have come and died and have made amazing work that we still somewhat recreate to this day. And I mean, like, look at how many fucking TV shows and movies rip off Shakespeare.
Right.
But everybody's like, oh, if you do that, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that means you're deep. But it's like, no, you're just ripping off Shakespeare.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like weird how cut and dry the legal system is with songs sometimes. You know what I mean? We can all, like, that's a great example. It's like we can all look at a movie that's almost the exact same plot, but we don't see all these lawsuits that's like, hey, this is a Sleepless in Seattle. Basically, again, we're suing you. No.
Yeah.
This is Dances with Wolves again. All right, go after James Cameron and Avatar. You know what I mean? Like, we don't see that in other art stuff. So it's weird that like songs are policed to a different level than everything else. But I think,
you know, to be honest, Colin, I think the reason that is because lawsuits and people suing for it have gotten away with it so much more in the music space than in a visual space. I think like with the visual medium, you have more information to base off of. And so like a lot more people have to be honest, when you're watching a TV show and you're like, shit looks weird. Like, you don't have to be a master filmmaker to know when something looks off. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so like, I think like with music, when it comes to the craft of music, of like writing the song, there is a little bit of like back end knowledge or talent that you have to have that, like, I think a lot of everyday people struggle with visualizing. Right. If that makes sense. Like how to write a song. Like, this is the way, you know, these are the differences.
Sometimes and that's kind of what I'm saying.
Like, this is a good song.
Right, exactly. And that's completely fine. I mean, like, at the same time that, like, maybe I get a piece of furniture by some craftsman and then another person tries to copy it, and then I show it to the first craftsman and they go, this isn't even the freaking same. You see these planter joints? Not even close. You know what I mean? I'd be like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, but to them, they can see that kind of stuff. And I think you're completely right, especially with the family angle. I think there is sometimes going, oh yeah, for sure. And then a musicologist gets to have his own check being like, oh yeah, they're similar. Let me point it out. It'll be like $30,000 for me to point it out, but I'll do it. You know what I mean? If you win, I don't care. I still get a check in the end. But at the end of the day, I think, or credit is the other thing. I think, yeah, it's a fight that's going to keep going on. And not to like, I hate red herring arguments being like, what about this? But like, also, I have listened to songs that are 5 times more, you know, that I go, I've turned to Joe in a car and been like, they're going to get sued for this. You know what I mean? And they don't get sued.
It's crazy. But it's also because I think a lot of people are like, what's the harm?
Right. And I think there's a respect to that culture of this is influence, or this is a kind of a, maybe an encore or a tribute to what we're influenced by. Right. And I think there is a line for that. But I still think, and I don't think we ever will get there, but I especially think in the amount of data and stuff that we have now in the internet age, we have no idea how to make that determination yet. It is just all whatever, whatever the judge that's there and the court that's there figures it out. And that's what's scary and determines precedent. And that's what's the job of the court to uphold, is go, well, in this one case, this could have giant legal ramifications beyond this one thing. I could not imagine if he lost, what would happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because again, I will literally mention this until I die on the show, is the Marvin Gaye Blurred Lines case is one of the most important copyright cases in the history of music copyright. And it all comes down. I don't think we would even had this lawsuit without that case. And that's how it all builds up together.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you been listening to Marvin Gaye this week, Colin?
I actually did listen to What's Going On, like the whole album, funny enough, at work. I was like writing this down, and I was like, Father, Father, and I, just going through all that. But yeah, I was listening to that. That was pretty good. What about you?
I've been listening. Girl House came out with a new EP. It's called the fourth EP. It is so masterfully done. It's such a great piece of work. Definitely recommend checking it out. They're based in Nashville actually, but I think perhaps might be relocating. I'm not sure, but Nashville act. It's amazing. And then M83 came out with new stuff, which is crazy. New track Amnesia. It's pretty cool. Definitely recommend checking it out. But
I was going to tell you, I was listening to, there's a new song that I think you would like because I know your interests. And it is called, it's by Wolfman, which is Jack
Wolfpack's cousin.
Yeah, literally, not even joking. But no, it's Jack from Wolfpack. Like that's his like solo project is Wolfman, which I like because Wolfpack's kind of been like on this like hiatus. Like somebody put it so eloquently at work. They went, yeah, Wolfpack just like randomly like now just like joins together, sells out Madison Square Garden, and then they leave. And I'm like, yeah, that's what they do. It's really weird, but that's kind of awesome.
I think they're gonna be like one of those bands that it's like they're so famous, but they're not. You know what it reminds me of? I was thinking about this the other day. The band Boston.
Boston's actually a good example. But they were more mainstream. I almost want to say Oingo Boingo. Because people know about Oingo Boingo.
Yeah, and or Chicago.
Yeah, but like Chicago's
hits. Pretty massive.
Chicago had big hits. I mean, like, so I don't know.
America. That's the one.
Wolfman, which is like Jack Stratton, who's like the leader of it, has this new song I really like. It's called "I Can't Party."
Yeah,
and it's like everyone's putting it, like the fans commenting on it, put it in the best way. It is like Cake. Like the band Cake, but it's like modern Cake, which I thought was really interesting. It's like a funkier Cake because it's very monologue-esque, and it's just got like a bunch of dry humor jokes in it the entire time that, dark, like that kind of dry humor where they just leave the joke on the table and it's just long pauses after saying a joke. But go listen to it. The YouTube video for it's really good. It's so simplistic that it's like great. You know what I mean? And I really like it. I'm very excited to see if Wolfpack will actually make some more stuff here in a second. So, and
I'm gonna listen to Cake right now,
dude. We have a fight at work at Cake. But
with Cake, you got into a fight with Cake.
No. So like they hate Cake at work. Like,
Oh no.
there's like some detractors, and then I got one guy who likes Cake, so I'll just put on Cake and I'll just watch them all go, God damn it. And then the funniest one, and then the one guy going, yeah. And then the funniest one is there's one person that doesn't know anything about Cake, and so I'll play it, and I'll play like the weird covers they do. Like, if you want a good example, look up I Will Survive. Yeah, I look up I Will Survive by Cake, and I remember they looked at me and they go, like, with a puzzling look on their face, brow crossed, all this stuff, and they just look at me as the song starts playing, and they just go, I don't like this.